Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's third in a series of webinars on becoming a retention magnet, strategies for boosting employee retention and increasing profitability. Good topic. With our guest panelists, Jacquelyn Gernaey and Christina DiBernardo from Expressive Connections. We appreciate you taking the time today to join us to attend today's webinar on building an evolving resilient enterprise. And welcome to probably about the 112th webinar now that we've had. And we hope that that your family are healthy and safe. There's a lot of storms going around the world, and just please do take care. This is the third of the series of webinar. Our first webinar focused on integrated onboarding. It's on the EIG website. Our second webinar was on proactively addressing employee burnout. And now we're into employee retention. So with us today, we have Jackie Gernaey, CEO of SevenStar HR with over 40 years of experience. Jackie enables small and medium-sized businesses to achieve their goals by providing reliable and affordable HR solutions. And next we have Christina DiBernardo with 10 years of experience. Christina is a licensed mental health counselor, board certified in biofeedback, and as a trained advanced clinical supervisor with a number of different titles there, acronyms, all which probably took a lot of work. So thank you, Christina, for joining us. This webinar, as all, will have interactive questions, and you can join on the poll EV that's in the chat, so please do join that. With that, we'll get into the deliverables. Today, we're going to be focused on learn the best techniques to mitigate retention issues. Then we're going to look at some metrics on employee turnover at the end of the webinar. And then we'll look at the financial benefits, and we'll be talking about those throughout. So please keep those questions rolling in. And then how to use automation to support and address employee retention. We'll talk about that a bit in these different best practices and what actions you can take now. With that, we're going to get started. Christina?
Good morning, everyone. Like Jim said, my name is Christina DiBernardo. I'm a licensed mental health professional, and I'm also a business owner. And so my company, my organization provides individual counseling and therapeutic services to children, teens, adults, their families, and the like. Well, we also provide services surrounding corporate wellness and corporate management structure. I am somebody who has started my business 3 years ago, and we've already grown pretty big in 3 years, with revenue already reaching over $1 million. So part of what I do, yes, is on the mental health side, and where that comes into talking about burnout and retention and all of those things, but also from an entrepreneurial side, I've had a lot of success in that as well, and I'm starting to manage and coach other professionals in this area, and I'm excited to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Christina. Jackie?
Yeah. So, Jackie Gernaey, I have a company called SevenStar HR. We're a full-service HR and hiring company. We utilize effective hiring as our branded service. We operate throughout the U.S. and Ontario, Canada, with for and not-for-profit organizations. And we generally start with one thing, and that is our HR MRI assessment, which looks at compliance, it looks at best practices in the HR area, and it looks at vendors, anything and anyone that might be touching employees in any way to give an idea of where you are and where you might want to go. This is a no charge tool that we provide. So if you want information about that, let me know.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. And just a kind of reminder about Enhance International Group, we focus on strategy and execution. We have over 60 partners on our team and over 2,000 professionals in our network. And today, of course, the strategy number one that we're looking at is employee retention. We all know that it starts with leadership in the employee and retaining your best talent and letting them grow in your organization and bringing in the right talent to help you grow is the focus of today's webinar and a focus of EIG overall, putting people, process, data, and technology together. We believe it needs to be done in that order, and therefore this is a very important area for us overall. With that, we'll get started into some retention stats. Very interesting stats of what we're seeing out there. The average cost to replace an employee is about 1.5 times their annual salary. So losing an employee is quite expensive. Engagement, only 35% of employees are actively engaged in their work. And we all know that the retention rates, when you have high retention rates, you're going to be up to 4 times more profitable. And onboarding and retention, 85% of employees are considering a new job. So it's a employee-based market versus company-based market. It has been that the last few years, and it's looking to be that way in the next few years. Jackie, your thoughts?
So what we find, Jim, is hiring, and we'll talk about this later on, is really important because 15% of those who quit within the first 6 months, and actually 17% quit within their first week. So there's a failure here in hiring and management if you have those kind of quitting rates. And there are a couple others on there that that are really, and as you said, it's expensive. It's expensive. And while we're not recruiters and we sell time rather than that, I mean, if you're bringing on a recruiter, it's 25 to 35% of their first year salary. So just right away, you've lost that. And even if they have a guarantee, they may not be able to find someone. So,
yeah, great points. Christina, your thoughts?
In addition to focusing on the financial costs of that 1.5 times somebody's salary, you also have to think about what it's looking like for the other staff members that have to pick up the slack of that person who left, and then the time, energy, and other types of resources it takes for those same current staff members to train somebody new. So how much of their own work is falling behind? How much of productivity are you also losing because you have certain positions that are constantly being cycled through new people? So yes, focusing on those financial burdens and the financial cost is so significant. Also thinking about the time, the energy, and the financial costs in terms of productivity that you might be losing from your current team.
Yeah, I think great points, Christina. And just to build on that, I think the quit rate kind of shows that there's people not understanding what they want to do and maybe not understanding the culture of what the companies are before they come in. They find out maybe it's a cultural thing, a misfit, so to speak, a missing fit between those two. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that, Christina, and the folks coming into you. Is that
Jim,
right?
All the time.
Jim, we always say business owners hire too quickly and fire too slowly. So, that hire too quickly part means you're bringing in somebody. Do you have a pulse? because I need a body. And that, of course, is not the way to have good retention.
Yeah, and that goes all the way down to the hourly worker on the lines. It's not just professionals.
Exactly.
And that's what a lot of folks miss out on.
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. So some other stats just to kick us off here. I thought that these turnover rates are, from highest to lowest. You see here we know that in the leisure and hospitality areas, very high turnover rates. The healthcare in the middle at 30%. Construction, high turnover rate. That's very difficult work. And, the government, it looks like everything stays in the government, relatively speaking. Once you're there, you're always there. But these turnover rates overall, from my observation, seem to be going up compared to maybe 10 years ago. Jackie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we see, there was pent-up turnover, I guess, during COVID. And of course, then we had the what they called the Great Resignation, which really wasn't. It was just pent up people that would have been turning over time, but were too frightened to try to find a job. And of course, business owners couldn't figure out how to shake hands through Zoom. So they thought that they could not do what they needed to do. So
Absolutely. Christina, what are you seeing here?
One of the things that I see with the people that I work with is that the industry does matter. So, Jim, you mentioned government, no one's leaving. Why does nobody leave? The burnout rate is really high, but the benefits, oh my goodness, people stay for those benefits. And so I think one of the things to look at when we're looking across different industries is what are the benefits of staying within a certain type of industry? I work with a lot of professionals in education at varying levels, whether that's universities, public or private. And yes, the benefits there are also wonderful, but it's also one of those industries where once you're in, you're in. And if you try to laterally switch or you try to go from public to private, or it's really, really difficult. And so one of the things to consider when we're looking just at these statistics is that it is industry dependent, and that's important. And so whatever industry you might be in, just considering what are some of the nuances of your industry and what specifics might come into play when it comes to turnover and retention.
Yeah. Yeah, you could spend an hour talking about all these stats and what you're seeing, especially in the professional business services, which is what, a lot of us are working in. The burnout rate in consulting is quite high. Everybody wants the sexy consulting role, but it's a tough environment. If you're going to work for a big house consulting firm, they really work you hard. And a lot of, it sounds like a glamorous job versus, you work for a large corporation or a government institution, where you get in there, you have more of a culture of nurturing. I think in some of these bigger companies, and that nurturing seems to be, there's less nurturing overall, it seems to me, than there was 10, 15 years ago. Any thoughts on that?
well, I think there's a big difference, of course, from government and private. And there is a thought for those that are in private that the people in government don't work nearly as hard as those people that are in private industry. Whether that's the case or not having worked in government, I don't think that I can say, but you're right. Glamour in jobs is really not what people should be looking for, because
It shouldn't be, but maybe there's a bit more of that.
yeah.
I mean, it used to be, being a doctor used to be the best job when I was started my career, and now
Not
it's
so glamorous now.
not so glamorous now.
Mm.
So it's pretty interesting to see the change in this over the last 30, 40 years and how it will change in the future, especially with AI, as a lot of these jobs will be greatly affected by artificial intelligence. Any thoughts on that?
Well, artificial intelligence, it's going to take away some jobs. The lower level jobs, it's going to take them away. But hopefully, with education, it'll allow people to grow into much more interesting, much more challenging, maybe, jobs, instead of doing rote work and things over and over and over. The only ones that are really going to be left in that are in some manufacturing, but again, with more and more machine learning and more automation, even those jobs become much more creative and challenging and fun.
Well said. Christina, your thoughts?
Like anything else, it can be utilized as a very effective tool to assist people in the jobs that they already have. And yes, to Jackie's point, there are going to be certain jobs that might not necessarily need a body anymore. But even with that, AI can be used as a wonderful tool to within most industries. And I think so long as the right education is there, to Jackie's point, it we can use it very creatively and hopefully fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's our brief intro on some opening stats, and we'll get into the webinar itself. We're going to get into understanding employee retention and how to get started at addressing some of these things and some best practices. And we're going to take that all as a group of all those three topics we addressed through our first topic here of the best practices in the second. And then we'll get into case studies, 2 case studies to share with you and to discuss, and then we'll regroup on some of these financials so that you have them and you can use them in your own organization. So again, we're going to focus on these first 3 items by covering a few topics. But before we get into that, we want to ask you, what are your greatest challenges in retaining employees? So thank you for entering these in. We'll look at this again at the end. So as we go through this section, please keep typing in what are the challenges that you're seeing on what's preventing people from staying at your company and in the workforce. So with that, I'm not going to read through these. These are the strategies for boosting employee retentions. We identified 9 key areas, from identifying culture to hiring on onboarding and work-life balance. With that, we'll get started with Jackie kicking us off on identifying your culture. Jackie?
Okay. Had to push that video 3 times. So culture is really the basis for what's going on in starting your retention of employees. And the first thing is that you have to understand who you are. What do you feel your culture is? And identify that through your management team. There are tools to do that. If you haven't, EIG has some great people that can provide you those kind of tools. And then, do the employees really understand who you are and what their role is in helping you get to what your vision is? I have seen all sorts of definitions of what companies' cultures are, from tough to fun to creative to whatever it is. But you want to make sure that you understand and then validate your culture from inside out and outside in. What does that mean? Doing engagement surveys with your employees. Do they believe that this is what the culture is? And do your clients, customers, believe this is what the culture is? So that's the first step.
Okay, and I think we'll revert with some questions at the end of this. We have a few slides in this area. I'll just cover a tool that we developed over the last few years on adopting this from Cameron and Quinn, and we turned this into a survey that can be taken. It's about 35 questions, and different folks in your organization take the 35 questions and identifying what type of culture you have. And we identified it into 4 major quadrants. I won't go into the axes, but we'll just focus on the quadrants today. And we call those quadrants personas. And first we have a bureaucratic, hierarchical, structural coordination, command and control type of organization. Very large corporations pre-2000 tend to be more this way. Of course, the government tends to be in this direction. The next type of organization that they identified was trapped or clannish, and it's very collaborative, but tends to be maybe a little bit weak on agility, but strong in collaboration, and generally focused within a division. The next is agile or advocacy. It's very dynamic, very creative, open-ended. Some of the high-tech companies tend to be trying to achieve more of the agile perspective of creativity. So the .NET boom companies post 2000. So you almost have the pre-2000s more bureaucratic. Post 2000s tend to be agile. So when you're looking for a company, you want to look to see, what is the best fit for you. And then there's a startup, which is very high energy, market-based. You're growing, you're scaling. You're going to have a new job every 3 to 6 months, or maybe at least every 6 months to 18 months, you'll have a new job because you're in a startup. You're wearing a lot of different hats, very high energy, very deadline focused. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's one thing you must understand is there's no right or wrong. It's just what type of company do you want to work on? In every industry sector, there's different companies in each of these 4 quadrants. So the question is, do you know what type of culture that you enjoy working in and where you can thrive? And does it align with your values and what you would like to do? And then, of course, you can see this is the shape of a kite. So you say, what's the shape of your kite for the company? Again, no right or wrong answer here. Christina?
And once you've identified your mission, vision, values, once you've identified your culture, how are you applying it? And one of the things that we've talked about in previous webinars is that it starts in the hiring and onboarding process. The people that you're bringing on that are new, as well as the current staff that you have, do they know what the culture is? And if they know what the culture is, do they actually believe and feel that that's what's being represented by the company and by the organization? Is it represented from documents like your handbook? Is it represented there? And then is it represented from a top-down perspective? Is leadership or our leadership demonstrating that culture, those values with their staff, with their team, as well as with their clients? I've worked with companies similar to Jackie, where part of their mission and vision was focused on rapid change or rapid growth, but in using language that using language that promoted more of an unease and a disorganized culture. And so where that was communicated not only to clients, the employees and the staff felt that and feel that significantly as well. And so one of the things to focus on is, do you understand your mission, but also what is that, how is that seeping in to the rest of your organization? Doing engagement surveys is a great way to figure out what's going on within your organization from your employees, staff, and mid-level management perspective. Does your mid-level management have a clear idea of what is supposed to be communicated and what is supposed to be embedded in the rest of your organization?
So I do have a question in the chat here for both of you, and it centers around what can an employee do to prepare themselves personally to find out what environment that they could thrive in the best. Are there any tools out there to help them?
One of the things that I do with the people that I work with is I focus with them on what kinds of questions that they can ask their future employers. So if you're in that interview process, that that hiring process, yes, you are being interviewed, but also how can you interview your potential employers? So going in prepared with the right kinds of questions, or questions that you know the answers to, which will help you figure out if you align and your values align with the company that you're applying for. Because cultural fit, yes, organizations want to make sure that they're bringing somebody on that culturally fits in with the type of environment that they're creating. Because like Jim had mentioned earlier, that one person can really throw off the energy of, and forgive the word, but throw off the energy of a department because of their attitude, because of their work ethic, whatever the case may be. So, but just like that, you as an employee, you want to do the same thing. You might find an organization where the benefits package is great and the work is something that really speaks to you, but the types of people that you might be working with are just people that you might not necessarily click with. And if that's something that's important to you and you need to find a group or an organization that you can just kind of flow right into, that's important for you to consider. So just like Jackie mentioned before, we hire fast and fire slow. The same kind of mentality, I think, needs to be applied for potential employees as well. Don't just take a job just because you necessarily need it, even though you might not be a good fit for it. Really take into consideration your options.
Yeah, thank you.
Christina, also a potential employee should get on their website, do some research. They should get a field there. They can look at on LinkedIn on the profiles of some of the people and get a field there. They can go to Glassdoor and do some research, and Indeed, they're about what it's like to interview there and get a feeling there as well.
Yeah, you can even go to ChatGPT and ask it to do a cultural analysis on the
Yes,
company,
you can.
and it will provide you sentiment of the company and cultural fit. So
There you
there's
go.
all a host of AI tools now, with ChatGPT being free, and all those areas that Jackie mentioned. There's really, and then you can say, what do you like to do? What's your behavior type? There's tools like Predictive Index, and I think, Jackie, you have a behavior-based tool. So there's lots of things to find out, what kind of environment would you want to thrive in? Do some homework. I mean, this is your life after all.
Absolutely.
With that, we're going to move on and get to the fun part of compensation, right?
Yes. So if one of the things that's really important is that you as an employer keep up with what the salaries are in your industry, in your geography, by title. And you can, I've seen it where they're like shocked at somebody coming in is asking for more money than somebody that's working for them. And that's really not what you want, because now you have to try to figure out, if I bring this person in, am I going to lose the person that I have that really is working well? And don't kid yourself. They all know what the other ones are making. But if you have put up a good compensation and then come up with some creative benefits, it doesn't have to be only health insurance. I was talking to a client yesterday, and they were talking about this. They had an employee, they must keep this employee, and he's big into music. So they came up with an idea to give him concert tickets. So build loyalty and engagement with your employees. Know who they are, what it is that floats their boat, as it says.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, this is an important area that, and it's changing, evolving, especially as salaries, when you get to the hourly worker, all the hikes in salaries and keeping up with that, and benchmarking, industry benchmarking, like Jackie mentioned, is incredibly important to make sure that you're retaining talent within an organization and attract the right people. Because as we said, every time you have to hire somebody, the cost to you in the bottom line is tremendous. So I'm sure Christina's seeing that on her side. What are you seeing in this area, Christina?
Pretty much the same thing that you guys are, that that people are valued based on money. And so making sure that you are aligned with the current market values of the profession and the title and all of the things like that. And also remembering that this is, like Jim articulated earlier, this is one of 9 things that we found to be really important. So while this is incredibly important, and please consider it, don't put all of your eggs in this basket.
And
you're right, Christina. People don't leave for money generally. They leave for other things.
That's perfect lead into this next area.
Yeah, absolutely. So engagement and purpose. So like Jackie said, people don't necessarily leave for money. That's I think what most people think, that people are constantly leaving and switching jobs in the hopes of finding a higher salary. Most people are leaving laterally and not for something necessarily better. People are more likely to look for something that compensates them comparably to what they've been given before, but fosters more engagement and purpose and learning opportunities and other things that we're going to talk about. So fostering that engagement and purpose, how do you, as a business owner or a person in leadership, make sure that your employees feel like the work that they're doing has value, that they themselves have value in terms of the work and the productivity? Are you encouraging group activities and outings if you have an organization that is either small enough or big enough, depending on what that looks like and what the workload looks like? What does interdepartmental communication look like? What is the sharing of ideas and promoting learning opportunities in your organization look like? When you foster that kind of engagement between leadership and between departments, and even within people within the same department, you will notice that people are more motivated to do what they're doing because they have somebody to collaborate with, or they have multiple people to collaborate with. They have people to share ideas with. They have people to ask questions. Most of the time, what I'm seeing from employees that come to me and are having a hard time in the organization that they're in, regardless of industry, is I have nobody to turn to when I have a question about something that was not taught to me correctly or was not explained to me in a way that makes sense to me, or I don't understand the purpose of what I'm doing. And therefore, when I go to actually, do the work, I'm only getting negative feedback from my higher ups because this was just not something that was ever shown to me. And when I go to ask a question, I'm basically met with, why can't you figure this out? Or, you should know this, as opposed to an engaging back and forth kind of a dynamic where that person can go to leadership, especially in the beginning, especially within those first 6 months. As Jackie mentioned, most people who quit within the first 6 months. During those first 6 months, that engagement and setting that person up for success is probably the most important time in any new employee's, I'm going to say, life, as far as life within your organization and company.
Great overview. Jackie, your thoughts?
So I think Christina hit it on the head. You know, you've got to make somebody, you have onboarding, which we talked about in a previous seminar, and you should refer back to that. If you don't onboard properly and get them engaged, and this isn't onboarding where the payroll company has you sign all this paperwork. That isn't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about engagement, relational onboarding with the other people in the organization. And you've got to make effort to do that. And if you can get them settled in that first 6 months, so that they feel part of the team, so that they feel they're doing good, that they're doing what is needed for the organization and feeling job satisfaction, that's really a fantastic situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, the one thing I working in different environments, the pod environment where everybody's open work environment versus more isolated environment where people work remotely, you find that, you know, there's a culture there that can develop in a pod, wide open environment that a lot of companies find works good to engage folks. The thing that you need to watch out is it becomes cliquish, and that you don't allow that to override, where if somebody comes into that environment and it doesn't gel perfectly, then there's can be people left out. So your first line management are incredibly important, that they're very good at facilitating and making sure that everybody's engaged and equally treated within the organization, and to break down those.
Jim, I think, you know, there was a time when foosball tables and all this kind of stuff showed up in the workplace to try to do this. And, you know, that's really passe at this point. There are much better ways to get people engaged. And then you don't have to be playing foosball in your
You don't have to play foosball, but you have to have a plan on how to do it.
Have to have a plan.
It can't just be happenstance.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it needs to be discussed at the management level, how to engage for your company and what you're doing. You need to make sure that's a priority in discussion.
Yeah, we use an automated system for retention, where it's different touches, and meeting with this person or that person. So it's creating a real plan. The automation is great, but you've got to create the plan as you.
So you need leadership, which brings us to the next topic. So, Jackie, lead us on this one.
Okay, so one of the things that we try to tell people is people don't leave companies, they lead managers. So if you are not getting your managers trained, and your managers are not embracing your company culture and providing a positive work environment, that's a big issue. So one of the things that you might want to think about is, especially if you're promoting a new manager into the organization who may want to make everybody think they're doing a good job and maybe being tough and trying to get things done quickly and all that kind of thing is use a 360 somewhere along the line. So a month, maybe 2 months after you promote that manager, and then get the issues uncovered quickly, so you don't have a manager who your employees are going to leave.
Excellent. Christina, your thoughts?
I think that Jackie said it best. You know, when it comes to any type of process that we're talking about for effective onboarding or retention or really anything, it starts with leadership. And if you are the leader, or if leadership within the company that you work for is not demonstrating the values that their mission might say that they do, you're going to have a negative work environment. You're going to have high turnover. You're going to have people who are consistently making those lateral moves. And you're going to have people who have no real understanding of what is expected of them in the work environment. And so making sure that leadership is on point, for lack of a better term, is I would argue maybe the most important component of all of this, because without leadership that fully understands and embodies all of these things, everything else falls apart.
Agreed.
Well said. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It all starts at the top. Leadership at the top level down to the bottom, down to first line manager is incredibly important, that it's consistent, aligned to your vision. And leadership is the number one thing that will drive productivity and enhance performance in a company.
And Jim, we're going to talk about statistics, ways to measure, but you need to break it out by manager so that you can really see. Is
Absolutely.
it the manager that's causing the turnover?
Yeah, that's a great point, Jackie. And I think, when you say, how do you find your leaders? I think it leads right up into this next topic, which is how you promote that internal mobility, Jackie. So help us out here.
You need to have you need to keep leaders. That's good. You need to have them in the right seat, in the right role, and that's great. And everyone's looking, as they're in a company, for opportunity and career development. But I think it's really important that we provide a path for employees and for managers so that they want to stay in the company, but we've got to guide them in that path process.
Yeah, I mean, this is it seems like this is harder and harder to do with people moving from company to company. How do you overcome some of those challenges?
Well, I think one of the things is, don't take your best person in a role and assume that they are going to be a good manager. I was working with a company and they were having problems because their salespeople are not hunters. And I said to them, where did they come from? You have sales support. How many of your salespeople have been promoted from sales support? And they said, all of them.
Oh, there you go.
Ow is right.
Ow is right.
Because two different roles, being sales support and being sales. So you need a path, but you need to make sure that you're not killing the company with by promoting
the old hunter farmer
to the wrong seat on the bus.
The hunter farmer challenge. There are different types of people, and it's not right or wrong. There's great hunters and there's great farmers. There's very, very few people that are good at hunting and farming. Those are needles in a haystack
Right.
at the farm. Christina, your thoughts?
It's all about finding the right fit. And if you do have somebody who is great at the job that they're doing, but not necessarily has the same characteristics and qualities and skill sets that one needs to be in a leadership position, then take that into consideration. But that doesn't mean that it can't be taught. And so, one of the things that I know we are going to go into is learning opportunities and strategies. So, if you are limited in your options when it comes to promoting from within, making sure that you have the right tools, structures, and educational opportunities in place to make sure that they are, again, set up for success for that job, that's important.
Oh, you're leading us right into the next slide. Again, Christina, thank you. Into succession planning. So, Jackie, take us away.
Yeah. So this is a great path of 10 steps, really, that you might want to use in taking a look at this. But review time really should be a time to help talk about that individualized career pathways. And as we said, it doesn't have to be to management. It can be into something where you maybe become a mentor for new people or whatever. But it's got to be clear, and they've got to know where they're going next, or they're going to start looking outside the organization for where they're going next. You really need to make sure that you fit culturally inside. And we did a presentation quite some time ago about using AI in succession planning and understanding really the holistically where each person is and where they might go, or have a pool of people in larger companies that you might choose from based on what they've done, maybe not even inside the current company. And you've got a constant, everything is about change. Companies are changing all the time, so you must monitor and adjust succession plans. And succession is not just for the top person, but for leaders within your organization.
Yes, well said, Jackie. Great topic. Christina, your thoughts?
Jackie mentioned mentorship programs, and something that I've incorporated in my own organization, as well as encouraged other employers to incorporate in theirs, is some kind of mentorship program, whether that is bringing on interns from universities and having people that you are considering bumping up into some kind of a leadership or mid-level management type role. Have them start with interns. That costs you nothing. And this way you can really get a sense of not only their active skill level at the time, but also where they might need room for improvement. And you're giving them the opportunity to earn something, as opposed to just saying, here, I'm pushing you up, figure it out. You're giving them the opportunity to figure out if it's something that they even feel confident, capable, and want to pursue. I've done this, or I've seen this, and had people come back to either me or to their employer and say, you know what, I'm not cut out for this. And I don't really want, I thought it was something that I wanted. And now I'm realizing that I don't. I'm happy in my current role, and I would rather stick to the responsibilities that I have. Imagine that you have somebody who is able to transparently tell you, yes, maybe you want me in this role, but I have to decline it because it's just not where I'm at and I'm not a good fit for it. People can be more aware than sometimes we give them credit for.
One
Excellent
thing,
point.
Christina didn't mean start with interns because they cost you nothing, because interns need to be paid. So that's not
Oh,
what
I'm
she
so
meant.
sorry. That is probably industry specific. My industry, interns are not allowed to be paid. So please forgive if that does not apply to your
Most
care
laws
industry.
say, yes, you've got to
Thank you,
pay them
Jackie.
unless it's a school backed, which is what your industry had.
Correct. Apologies if that was misleading.
Great topics, but I thought this is pretty important. Throw some data into this mix and the magnitude of impact. Jackie, you want to bring us through this slide?
So I believe that really retention starts with good hiring. And we've talked a lot about engagement, but if you take a look at this chart, you can see that engagement is down the line as to the impact of turnovers. We've got this divided by the person and then the organization. What I really believe is that if you are having retention problems, then you should look at what are the questions that you are asking people, especially in the top three, that life and career satisfaction, coping, and general career commitment, because that's something that is the individual that you're bringing in, and something you can only control by hiring or not hiring someone that doesn't fit what it is you're looking for retention.
Thanks, Jackie. I think it's always good to put some data into things and just kind of look at it holistically on what things are looking at. So this is a great perspective. With that, I think we'll just move on to the next area on the interviewing questions to flag and risk.
There is a really clear and great way to assess people, their behavior, their desires, their ability to cope, coming back to the previous slide. And it does start in the interview process. So here you can read through it. I'm not going to read it. There are a list of a couple of questions that you can use as either a template or use verbatim to really assess a new hire and assess not only their cultural fit, but also their ability to cope under pressure, their ability to deal with the unique challenges that your industry or organization might deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, so that you can get a sense of the person sitting across from you outside of what's on their resume and what they've listed as their special skills, or they've listed as their previous responsibilities. As we know, not everybody communicates everything as clearly as is needed on a resume, but once you have that person in front of you and you can get a sense from them, even just tell me about a time that you overcame a challenge on your own. What are some of the resources that you used? What are some of the questions that you asked? How did you navigate this process? And you'll learn a lot from that person based on how they're able to answer just that one question. So utilize this list of questions, tweak them. These are just suggestions. You don't have to use these verbatim, but here's just a general idea of a tool that you can use to help you narrow down who might be the best cultural and job fit for your organization.
And
Thank you.
reduce that flight risk. Because if they're unsatisfied with their life and their career, and they're coming to you in that career situation, same career, they're not going to get more satisfied with their career. You can't control that.
That's right.
Right.
I mean, some of these questions are you really need to internally think them through and be prepared to self-assess yourself to why you're looking for a new position and what you're looking to get out of it. It's only fair to the employer that you're honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
With that, we get into learning and development, Christina.
I talked a bit about this earlier, that in order to make sure that people do continue to feel engaged, valued, and like the work that they're doing is meaningful, providing them learning and career development opportunities in-house, or even providing them the resources to find that on their own. My organization in particular requires a certain, sorry, not my organization, my industry in particular requires a certain number of hours every year or every few years of continuing education. And where I can't personally provide all of my team members every single opportunity, I am constantly making sure that they have access and the means and are fostering a mentality of how can I continue to learn. So even if you're not paying for that within your organization to have somebody come in and, teaching some of your staff members a new skill, how are you fostering that as part of, getting your staff motivated to learn certain types of, things on their own? One thing that a few organizations that I've worked with in the past has started to do is they organize monthly brainstorming sessions where once a month everybody that's able to get together gets together within the organization, and they are either being presented with a learning opportunity in that moment, or they're being asked, what are some skills, or what are some certifications, what are some things that would be important for you to continue to learn that we can potentially provide you as an organization. And so they've done that every month, and the retention rate just from doing that alone has significantly shifted in the positive.
It's amazing if you ask employees what to do from a management perspective, how engaged and what they have to say. Sometimes we forget to ask, don't we?
Sure.
As consultants, I say sometimes you just need to read, ask the questions and tell them, look at their watch and tell them what time it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's so concerned with productivity, they lose track of the human element of the workplace.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so important to do those types of activities.
And that changes. We're just changing constantly.
Yeah, we're changing, but we don't want to change, right?
We're resistant to it, but it's inevitable.
It's inevitable, whether we like it or not, which ties right into work-life balance,
It sure does.
with all these challenges.
And with work-life balance, a significant part of having a good balance in one's life is on the responsibility of the employee. However, if the culture of the organization is to always be on, or to always be available, to not necessarily have enough of a structure, or where the benefits package just really isn't affording the employees, the team members, what they need in order to be able to produce at work, then you're not going to see that. So from an employment perspective, or from an organizational perspective, what kinds of supports do you offer your team, or what does the culture really speak to when it comes to promoting that balance? Do you tell your employees, or does leadership share to their employees, the workday is 9 to 5, but also you might get emails at 9 p.m. and you better be answering them, because that's just the cultural implication. I know that in finance and accounting specifically, especially during busy season, the 9 to 5 workday becomes this mythical unicorn, and it's more of a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. kind of an industry. But even within that, how can a company, how can an organization still within that promote work-life balance, promoting breaks, promoting having even virtually, like, group everybody, from 1 to 2, group A is not working, and just getting together to kind of breathe, take a lunch, maybe even do, some movement exercises, whatever it is. Here are things that you can do at home. And group B does the same thing from 12 to 1. I think I said the times backwards, but I think we're clear. But work-life balance is, if we go back to that chart, one of the number one reasons why people leave, because there is no balance, and because the job puts the pressure on people not to be balanced and to only focus on the output at work.
Jackie, your thoughts?
I think when we discuss, we're going to discuss a case study called called the Spice House, which is a small family business, and it really feeds into the work-life balance situation. So extremely important.
Absolutely. With that, we thank everybody for your thoughts on putting in some of your challenges that you're seeing, lack of communication, getting clear on the company's vision, repetitive work. Jackie, your thoughts on this?
So I think the biggest thing is the grass is greener somewhere else.
Huh.
You know, the better pay, it's going to be better for me someplace else. And so, you know, while management is responsible for much, employees can participate and even make some demands of management that things be better, or raise your hand, be part of the solution, not just part of the problem.
Right. Christina?
I think Jackie said it best. I think she's absolutely right. That grass is greener on the other side mentality seems to be very common, and it isn't necessarily, as I think we all know.
Yeah. Yeah, the self-reflection of who you are and what you want to do needs to be done in that case when you're always thinking it's going to be greener on the other side. Do you know what you want and where you're at and where you're going? Everybody needs that sense of purpose, right?
Mhm.
Of what you want to do in your life. And once you understand that, then you can be a lot happier. So with that, we're going to get into some case studies. Jackie, the Spice House.
Yes, the Spice House. And if you want to pull up, click it again and we'll get the whole, there you go. So this was we wanted to make sure we talked, large companies have some issues, small companies have others. And this was a small family-owned business, and they specialized in premium spices. And as it turned out, they were having high turnover. The employees were not engaged. And so what we did was we implemented some strategies here on the right, fostering a family-like culture, that different feeling where we all care for each other. It's not a big corporate. Giving some flexible work schedules, and then investing in the development of the employees and recognizing and rewarding them. And the outcome was fantastic. The retention rates went up, way up. And I think it was by 30 or 40%. And if you've got engaged employees, guess what? It's going to be great for customer service as well. And so they ended up having sustainable growth and were able to overall double.
Great story, Jackie. The story that I have is fairly typical in startups. I've worked with a lot of startups over the year. This is HubSpot, a software as a service platform provider, growing and scaling very fast, and burning out people left and right, with very high expectations from management, and everybody's moving at a million miles an hour, and the organization just wasn't transparent. I think it was well intended, but not transparent. And then taking a step back to build those flexible work policies, and again, going back to sense of purposes in these environments, very often you're asked to do many different things. Your job role says this, and then you're doing something different than what your job role says, and job roles don't mean anything, which is very typical in startup companies. You need to really hone in on what the roles are and what are the expectations, and make sure that the salaries are aligned to those, and building that reward and recognition programs aligned to that, so that everybody's treated fairly. So once we have adopted that in many different startups outside of HubSpot, and this is that you're going to get much higher retention rates, and go from, in our case, we went from being the least wanted division to being the most wanted division to work in there, and helped us sustain our growth. And this then dovetails into not just our performance, internal performance, but it helped us perform better with our customers, and driving that employee development, where our customers would come in eventually and say, gosh, I would like to work for your company, which is the best a best way to get employee satisfaction high, and your productivity high, and growth. So it works really well, especially in these startup type of environments. So that's the case studies. We want to just close it out here with some retention metrics. There's a lot of different metrics on here that we've talked about throughout. We've touched upon a number of these. Net Promoter Score, of course, is the most popular. Time to productivity is something hard to measure, depending on what the environment, but encourage you to figure that out. Jackie mentioned the 360-degree review, especially on first level management on up, but every employee for that matter should have a 360. And then we've talked a lot of these different types of activities, but these all can be measured. And I think that's the most important thing, is what gets measured gets done. You make it visible, transparent, you share it with the organization, and that will increase everybody's belief in the company, that you're being transparent. Jackie, your thoughts?
I think you need to think about what's going on within your organization, and divide these into post and pre-retention. So and take a look at it. Are you concerned about the future? Are you looking to diagnose what's gone on in the past? One of my very favorites is the Net Promoter Score, which is just on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely, if you get the same job offer with the same salary, same distance from home, same, are you to take that job? And that will tell you a great deal about the likelihood of turnover.
Christina, do you have a favorite metric up here?
I do actually, and it happens to be time to productivity, even though it's the most complicated. But if you can figure out in your industry or in your organization how to measure it, maybe you are an organization that happens to have some kind of fee for service or service-based industry. If you can find a way to measure how long it takes a new person to become revenue generating, and what within there you can do to either make it shorter, make it more effective, make it more just creative and innovative, whatever the case may be, along with the employee net promoter score that Jackie was just talking about, you can really set your organization up for some wonderful successes.
Yeah, those are two of my favorite metrics myself. With that, the financial impact, I think we covered most of these metrics at the beginning of the webinar, but we summarized them here. So we're not going to go through them in detail here, but they're summarized here. I think we covered all these at the start of the webinar. Any closing comments on these metrics?
Metrics are not worth anything if you don't look at them and do something about them.
Great point.
Agreed. Accountability is key.
Absolutely. And so we have some more on, again, these are all metrics that are out there. And we encourage you to look at these metrics and measure them and take action on them. Any closing comments on the financial impact?
It can, it's bad for a large company. They can, but they may be able to absorb the cost. It can be totally detrimental for a small company who really can't afford the costs of turnover. So if you're a small company, even though this is a lot of things you may need to do, you really need to pay attention. You don't want to take your company down because you're not paying attention to this.
Christina?
And once you figure that, regardless of your size, once you figure out how to just smoothly integrate a retention-based process and culture for your organization, it's such a headache lifted off of leadership and management, because they can just trust that everything is running smoothly and that they are doing the things that they need to do, as well as what's trickled down. And yeah, just remove the headache.
There you go. All right, so I think we'll close out the webinar. I think we covered all those deliverables pretty thoroughly. And we hope you enjoyed our discussion today. And thank you for your questions and comments throughout. Very enlightening. And this closes out our webinar series. And we look forward to seeing you on other webinar series, and maybe once, maybe in 8 or 9 months, maybe we'll start up another webinar series in this area. With that, any closing comments? Jackie?
Thanks all for attending. And if you learned one thing, it was well worth your time being here.